Good afternoon, everybody. We're live here on the Decide to Dominate show. I am, again, your host, Michael Weatherly, and this is my co-host, DJ Dozier. Today on the show, we have someone who we've known a little while and get to know a lot better, and that is Mr. TJ Graham. So, TJ, thanks for being on the show today. TJ's a North Carolina resident, so man after my own heart there. Obviously born and raised in North Carolina myself. Went to NC State. We can talk about that. I did wear a Carolina blue-colored hat today.
Shame on.
DJ got some red underneath the 6 sweatshirt, though.
I had to keep it covered. Because we can't wear red from Penn State. But I did it just for you, TJ.
Appreciate it.
2012, third-round draft pick, 69th overall by the Bills. Wide receiver in the NFL for a while. Had a couple stints in the CFL, so maybe we could get there. That'd be cool to hear about. Man after our own hearts now in the tech space, doing a lot with coaching, and down in North Carolina is worked it involved in a lot of businesses. And I think he's got a hat and a background there that you might want to talk about today. Anyways, Green Bay Packers, Bill Walsh kind of coaching thing. I don't know much about that. I'd love to learn about that. Anyways, thanks for being on the show with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is pretty cool. So can't wait to first get started.
Yeah, and we got to say you're very well set up with the background there. That is money.
Yeah, well,
the presentation goes.
Part of the tech space, right? I'm being a little younger, learning how to kind of brand yourself, and it's kind of how it goes. And young kids understand it, so I'm catching up. So I'm good.
Yeah, definitely with name, image, and likeness. And we know you work with a lot of like high school and college kids, so maybe we can even get there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you being a versatile athlete, not just in football, but also track, obviously want to get into that and some of the specifics you learn and how you transfer some of those skills from athletics into your tech space / your entrepreneurship. So look forward to getting into that. That being said, I mean, obviously NC State, unique program. I've got a bunch of friends from NC State, coaches as well as players. So TJ, talk about why NC State. I mean, I know that's your hometown, but what persuaded you? Because I visited NC State.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it wasn't an official visit, so I visited there unofficially, and uniquely enough, guess who met me there? Pete Carroll.
Wow.
Pete Carroll was my coach. He recruited me, and we got a chance to play basketball.
Oh, that's cool.
On campus. Everyone was gone. But anyway, so for you, TJ, why NC State being a hometown guy?
Well, Mike was mentioning the Carolina Blues. So most of my family kind of grew up. My mom's side is from North Carolina. My dad's Jamaican born. So there were a lot of Tar Heels. And being in Raleigh, I just kind of had the black sheep mentality. I always just liked NC State, right? But at the same time, my dad was a professional track coach, so I spent probably 70% of my childhood at NC State's track. And at that time, the football team was housed over at Weisinger Brown WB building, and they would practice at the inside of the track and at the adjacent field. So for summers and falls and springs, I'd be there with my dad watching football from probably 5, 6 to the point where one day I just kind of collected a job with my dad's group of shagging the balls and keeping them off the track. Finally kind of just escalated into seeing where the ball is coming from and where are they coming over. Mostly there's kickers and punters. So I started going over and fielding kicks and punts at 7 years old, learning how to kick from Mark Permanti. He's the Groves Award winner. So at that time, I didn't know who I was talking to or what I was doing, but it was a lot of fun. And that became my passion with NC State. I slightly became a fan, but I was kind of adopted into the group. So it was more than just fanhood. It was like family. So when it came time to pick a school, I chose between NC State and Florida State. I really grew up like a Florida State fan, just the shiny gold helmets. They're really good team, and that just kind of was like a benchmark to strive for. Nowadays it'd be like Bama or Clemson or something like that, Penn State, big schools that people aspire to go to. But for me, it was those, and then hometown kid, I want to stay at home. I was like, they're gonna come here anyway, so no need to go. And I don't think I made a wrong decision. I think a lot more kids should stay close to home. I think it's something that allows you to grow and learn a lot, but also to have that safety blanket of home. You can really get out on your own. But if anything ever happens, you have somewhere to tap into. And I think that was a huge benefit for my success. So
Yeah, so you're the exact opposite of me. I was telling DJ, my whole family went to NC State, so I like Carolina. I was the black sheep of my family. That's like just the exact opposite. So that's interesting with you being young. So would you say that you were a track star who became a football player, a football player who became a track star, or kind of both in parallel?
Oh man, that's a great question. So, all right, if you had to read my scouting profile, I'm a track star that started playing football, but that just means they did not know my history. So I was playing football long before I started running track. I just was born into a track family.
Yep.
And I was born into it with athleticism more so than just, pure speed. Of course, I can run fast, but I really love football and the chance to do other things and execute other athletic movements beyond just linear speed. But at the same time, like when I finally started doing track, it was more nature in that, and just kind of had some success. Like my sister's a track star, my dad's an Olympian. Like it just, I can't. Yeah, it was inevitable to what's gonna happen, but I just wanted to apply that ability to football. So been playing since I was 7.
So talk about transitioning from track to football. Obviously in football, someone's hitting you, someone's chasing you, right? So talk a little bit of it. When you were in your youth, what was that transition like in terms of dealing with folks, coming at your limbs and going at your head and stuff?
Yeah, well, I learned quick that I wasn't always the biggest. Of course, I was a late bloomer in my growth spurt, so I was always a little smaller and shiftier. But I was also a troublemaker in school and in life. So if you're getting into it, my parents sent me to military school in like 7th grade. So I was going through it. I was not shy. I was not afraid of contact. I was getting in, I want to say fights, but if you tried me, I would let you know. So the football field was a great place to kind of exert all that energy. I would definitely go from school being like, okay, I can let this out at football practice, or football is my outlet. So there's no hesitation until it wasn't until like the guys started getting real big. Like I remember playing as a sophomore on varsity, and that's a huge jump for like a kid, like your growth spurt doesn't really start till around 15, 16, 18-year-old kid is a whole different size, right? So that was probably the only time in my youth career I remember just seeing a huge size difference. After that, I just kind of started building myself up, preparing for college, preparing for the pros, but the main thing was that I wasn't really afraid of hitting people. I think I was just too small to hit people. It probably wasn't the smartest thing at times, but.
So did you ever want to be on the defensive side? I mean, we know you're a wide receiver for a really long time, like cornerback, safety, something like that.
No, actually, I mean, I wish to go grab without getting off camera, but I've always been an offensive guy. I've got a really good really good friend, Vinny. He leads Pack Pieces, and he and I go over, like, we geek out about NC State history all the time because, we're close in age, but I've been around the program for a minute to know some history. And one of the first players that I gravitated to was Alvis Whitted. Really fast football player, like 10-1 fast in the 100. Played for the Raiders. So when the Raiders were drafting everybody who ran 4.3 and below, like that's when he was on that team. But he's the one that I kind of just modeled my game. I was like, if he can do it, knowing him from college to pro, like I feel like I could do it. And he definitely mentored me in a lot of ways. Him and my dad would communicate and give me information. But I just want to stay on offensive side because I don't know, it's just a different feel. Like when you're an offensive guy, like you get to touch the ball and do what you want with it. And I feel like if you're on defense, it just means you can't catch. So
just saying. Yeah, you hear that all the time about quarterbacks and safeties. Like, and you see it in the game sometimes. You're like, that's why he's on defense.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a question for you that you just made me think about with speed. So when I think about the Rams a couple of years ago, and then look at the Chiefs, obviously, and now the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these teams are kind of looking at that as a way, as the future, as the NFL goes. I mean, obviously, you being a speedster, what are your thoughts of that? Just kind of that new shift and focus.
Well, around the 2011 CBAs, when things started kind of shifting, body compositions, they started changing the speed and flow of the game. We started leaving the old Steelers, big linebacker, Steelers, Ravens body types, and we started getting a little bit faster, hybrid, shiftier guys. The cool part about it is I was a part of a early group trying to position ourselves similar to how you said the Dolphins, Chiefs, Rams. So the Steelers actually tried to adopt that model fairly early with Big Ben, Mike Wallace, that group, really fast guys, Antonio Brown. We had gotten a GM or a management position from the Steelers, and it was Doug Whaley. Doug Whaley came up. He's like, I want this to be like the Steelers. Got it. So our team at Buffalo, we had CJ Spiller, we had Marquise Goodwin, we had Robert Woods, myself. Yeah, that was like our track team.
Right.
We had a serious track team. However, the main thing is you just gotta kind of have stability at all positions to kind of execute that. So it's not just having speed, right? Like the speed is like the glitz and the glam. And the main thing's the main thing. You gotta have your O-line block it up, got somebody throw it. All right. We gotta have a lot of things in order to kind of get to the outside. We definitely bailed ourselves out at times with somewhat speed. But speed without space is nothing, right? So just creating the play calling, being able to get the ball to those specific parts of the grass that are open that we can, get to. But to answer your question, I think it's something that has definitely sped up the game, right? In a way, it's made it a lot more exciting. Definitely a passing league, so having speedier receivers and running backs and other positions to kind of open the field up is definitely something that plays into like the entertainment space of getting butts in the seats and fans watching it from the TV screens. But just as a fan myself, like I enjoy it. Like I hate watching defensive football.
Yeah.
Right? Offensive football is cool, right? So stretching the field, I love what the Dolphins are doing and giving these speedy guys a chance and running a pretty cool offense that, it's exciting. It's exciting. And the main thing is having a quarterback back there in the line that can block it up. So
I was going to say, too, it helps when you can't even touch the quarterback these days. I mean, I was a quarterback in high school. I'm like, I got my head bashed in. I would have loved it. Nowadays, you just drop back,
Right.
you get touched as a flag. So
even offensively right now, the game and the rules have just changed even since I've been playing, where I fit the current state of the game now when I played almost 10 years ago. So things have changed for sure. But at the same time, I do still love smash mouth football, man. It's just something about just the gladiator warrior feeling of football that, I don't want to say it's missing, but I don't want to make it too soft yet. But I get it.
Yeah. Well, you sound like TJ, one of those receivers that doesn't mind blocking, right? So as a running back, we love receivers that love to block. Right?
I like being on the field, and I understand that blocking is a part of your assignment, right? We're 11 trying to move the ball forward, right? So it's not just I'm running routes. I got to play another role. A lot of the times blocking wasn't really a thing until you are I was like more in college when I came about, when you're like, all right, we got to win this game. You got to come down and crack back on that. So you have to hold this gap open. And once you start learning that it's a part of the game, then you get the ball more as a receiver. So I'm like, all right, so if I block a little bit, you guys want to throw it? Correct. All right. So that makes sense.
Right.
Speaking of that, so as a receiver, what were some of your favorite, or what is your favorite route or favorite routes? And at what point did you figure out, hey, this route is my route, right? For my composition, for my physicality.
My guess would be a go route. I mean, you're a track. I mean, come on, full sprint.
Okay.
Let me do my thing.
Great point. And you are just like every other coach. That's like, all right, TJ's fast, put him on a go route.
That's
actually one of the hardest passes to catch. You're running away from the ball. It goes up in the air. It's small, and you're running like away from it really fast, and it's not easy to catch over the shoulder. I think the best vertical route would be a post route. I would call it a home run post near upright. The view that you can get to see the ball is a little bit easier, and the access to the field is a little greater. So if the ball is off at all, you have a lot of space to adjust to. It also puts the defender in a tougher spot because now you can head them up and stem them, and off that route tree, that initial stem, you can run so many other routes to set up that post.
Right.
A go route for sure is threatening, for sure. Like, I can run by almost everybody. And that's the thing that almost is a negative to the situation because they get a scouting report too. So they're usually sitting in a defense that kind of stops that, where the safety's either beelining off the hash and he's right at your face when you put your hands out, or they're pressing you at the line of scrimmage. And most of the time on a go route, it requires an outside release. Well, the post route, you can get inside or outside and get vertical. So
and almost on any time of those, you're going to have two guys on you. I mean, that, like you said, the safety's going to bleed over. So you got to catch the ball with two defenders.
Correct.
So it's one. So did you ever I know we could probably go down the sports question route all day long. We want to get to the business and tech and all that side. Did you ever have a favorite quarterback that you ever played with?
Oh, that's getting me in trouble. I can't say that. That's not
okay. All right. Okay, I had to ask.
Well, I will say this. So I'm going to go back to it based off of the reason I went to NC State too, going back to DJ's question, right? Mike Glennon. Mike G is my guy. So Mike G, first time I met, like in high school, I want to say I didn't have a quarterback. We're just young, right? I was really, really fast for a high school kid. So it was very hard to kind of get.
You run the ball a lot. I mean,
yeah, and we couldn't really throw it as far as I could run, right? So it wasn't until I encountered Mike Glennon at a camp at NC State. Actually, he just came in for a recruiting visit. They were setting up to be the next Matt Ryan from our BC coaching staff. And we went into the stadium or so. And I remember walking over to him and I was like, hey, man, we're running a post. Just throw it. And he's looked at me like, who are you talking to? I was like, just telling him to throw me. And he's literally like, who are you talking to? I'm like, I'm being so serious. And he actually overthrew me because I didn't really know if he could throw it. He overthrew me probably about 3 yards. And I came back to last year. I was like, let's run that back. The coach didn't say anything. I said, let's run it again. I can run faster. So let's go. Connected. It was smooth. The coaches were like, yeah, we're going to sign these two up. So I remember just talking to Mike G probably every day for a year to get him to commit. And one day he committed and that was it. I was like, I'm next. We're going. So the main reason I went to NC State was to play with the quarterback of that caliber that could throw the ball fairly deep. And we're in a pretty cool pro style offense that translated to the NFL. So it was a lot of goods that happened. I happened to be a fan in Raleigh. Then coaching staff came that kind of applied a good concept of offensive play calling to, help me on my journey.
I mean, to me, it's a good story. You're a hometown kid, hometown university, went and played NFL. Now you're back home working with the local kids and athletes. Pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I'm assuming since you're a hometown kid, you had a chance to see Phillip Rivers play. The only NC State football game that I went to, actually, he was the quarterback.
Really?
And so that goes back a bit. But so now Mike asked you a question. You didn't answer it. Let's talk about connecting. So who had the best connection, or who did you have the best connection with in terms of quarterbacks versus the best quarterback? Who like you the most?
Like dude who calls you up and was like, "Hey, let's get a beer," kind of connection, or I don't know, whatever.
I've got two of those.
Around your sister kind of question.
I've got two of those. Man, I think probably I'm gonna flip it, but the most unique connection I had was Michael Vick. So me and Michael Vick were locker neighbors with the Jets for a whole season, and Geno Smith was playing that year, and then him and Geno was like his mentee, but I would talk to Michael Vick every single day, and I grew up like I know we have the Michael Vick that everyone in the media, but I grew up watching Michael Vick. Like I'm like, this dude walks on water. Like I do not know how to play the game of football. This guy is the greatest. So then seeing him on as an older athlete, but then also still very, very skilled, but then also having a chance to talk to him every day. And then we get in the game and we end up beating the Steelers this one time when he started and bombs over like deep ball, beautiful deep ball. It's probably the strongest arm I played with, most likely. I mean, just could flick the ball 1,000 yards. I would say Mike Vick, because we would literally get in the huddle, play call, it's a deep ball. I already know what's coming to me. That's the best feeling as a receiver, because you don't got to no guessing, just got to get open and get the ball. So definitely be him. But I'll go back to Mike Glennon. We spent some really cool years as freshmen, and I was the DD, and I was just taking care of my teammates, and we had some really good humble moments that kind of helped us bond together. That when we used to run the second team and sometimes a spring game against our first team, we would beat our first team all the time. Like our connections were solid. We were just waiting for our time to play. And this is against Russell Wilson and my senior group. And I tell them now, like, we can run this back any day. And our second team was really good. Although they respectfully were really good. Ours was just a really good connection. So I would say those two. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, my rookie year, is definitely a good quarterback that brought me along, because his intellect and how he engaged with the game just kind of had made me grow up really fast. Like I remember just being at the line of scrimmage and we're going through our cadence, ready, and he's like giving me a hand signal, and I'm still focusing on what I got going. He just changed the whole play. And it just made me understand the intricacies of the quarterback position, but then just how you have to execute an NFL offense against an NFL defense, right? You can't just go out there with the initial play call. You hear the can all the time. That's a play call change. So you also have to go with keep your eye on the quarterback, just knowing these quick signals. So I really attribute a lot of my continued success from just being thrown in the fire with Chan Gailey and Ryan Fitzpatrick my rookie year.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Fitzmagic, as he's called,
Yeah.
obviously. We got a chance to meet him earlier this year at the Waste Management Open. He was on the Pro-Am day out there on the 16th hole, and, he was going to tee off, and we got some good shots with him. He is hilarious. He's
a good dude. He's a funny guy.
He's a good dude. Well, okay, so transitioning here a little bit, at 6, obviously what we do, and we focus on technology and innovation and sports and how all those intersect. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with BreakAway, and I know you're working with a bunch of other, obviously, companies or a couple other companies where you're helping them out from a sports angle with technology. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to. What's the TJ Graham up to now post-football?
Well, I got a lot going on. I was always a busy person. I don't know if you guys know Chris Hogan, call him 7-Eleven. So Chris Hogan and I were teammates in Buffalo, and we recently just re-engaged over this tech stuff, BreakAway Speed, and he's trying to implement it at his facility. And he's like, we kind of just took a drive back down memory lane, and we were in a meeting one day, and I had like this. It looks like this actually, just like a small little doodle book. I would just write a bunch of ideas in. It's actually like a mini composition book, and I would just be in meetings, and I had an idea, write it down. And he was like, "Why are you playing football?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I really love football." He goes, "No." He's like, "You. Why are you playing football?" Because I'd always have my mind on unique things around, like not only just football. It allowed me to understand the intricacies of business at a $1 billion level, right? Just seeing how, we're playing football. This is the entertainment, but there's so many other things that go on around here that help us play, but are also making money or supporting it. So when I finished football, I just kind of took a tech route. Like I've always been very tech savvy. Like if anything need to get hooked up in my house, my parents would call like, "Hey, TJ, hook this up." That was me. I used to take things apart as a kid and put them back together. Take my RC cars apart, turn into a boat. Just unique things that typical football players don't do. But just going on that tech route, I got a job after the CFL in Montreal with a company called Sport Logic. They were doing optical tracking for hockey. Like they were just basically tracking players through visuals, through video, and giving them stats and data. I was like, what is this? Like I know we have GPS. I was just getting into the tech space myself as an athlete, and then jumped out and then came a salesman for them. So I got to talk and connect to all these Power 5 groups, NFL teams. I got to really talk to a lot of people, kind of understanding the sport performance space and technology. So that helped me kind of find where I would settle in. Ended up meeting current CEO of BreakAway, Dave Anderson, at an event. So me and Dave hit it off immediately. It was almost like that Spider-Man pose where you stare at each other. Like, yeah, we're talking the same language, because he just had come from Second Spectrum, which is a very similar group that does that for basketball. So as I was in the hockey space helping them build out football, he was in the same space building out NBA. So he had started BreakAway with the idea of giving athletes their data. And I was like, I'm understanding that right now. So what we do at BreakAway is we just create an app that helps aggregate all of your performance data, personal data, biometric data, everything that's collected you as an athlete around. And I kind of took that to heart, because as an athlete, like I'm sitting here, I have a thumb drive right here, and it has a few of my EMRs, my electronic and medical records on it. And it's just sitting on this USB, right? Where it should be in-house in some space where I can easily access it all the time. So our first initiative was to just create a space for athletes to house their data, right? Allow athletes to own their data. And then on top of that, once you house it, own it, you can understand it. And once you can understand it, you can start manipulating those numbers. Once those numbers are manipulated or altered or coached or whatever you want to call it, your performance increases, and that all plays into health and longevity. So this just went right along with me as a person. I'm a coach's son. Mom and dad are coaches, so this plays right into it. I watched my dad coach at a high level using technology called Dartfish back in like the early 2000s, the slow motion capture. I helped set it up at the time. It was crazy on his computer, and this is when computers weren't like how they are now, so they're way more difficult. So this tech stuff has been going like that. But what you see behind me is BreakAway Speed. So with all that being said, when we talk about BreakAway, aggregating and integrating all your data, we created an easy entry point for you to collect data. You didn't need a GPS device. You didn't need a fancy force plate device. You didn't need anything. All you need is your phone now. You can capture yourself running across a 10 yard or 10 meter space. It gives you miles per hour, gives you time to completion, stride length, step rate, ground contact time, air time, all these things that you would usually have to have some fancy lab or performance facility, right? So we created that just from your phone. So it's like literally in your pocket, and you get it back within 3 to 5 minutes compared to like some companies are at 48 to 72 hours, right? So we made it very easy for you to get information back to you. And I use that for my coaching now. So I kind of created a tool to kind of help me coach, which is kind of what you do. And now we're selling it like hotcakes all over the place because this now applies to a number of other sport performance coaches from youth to pro. And going back to what you're saying about performance-wise, like I coach youth kids that are just starting football up to NFL players who are continuing their journey. So the main thing. I focus on functional movements. Functional movements, you can measure those, right? Just very basic movements. But if you can't move well, how are we going to do? I always say, if you can't bake a good cake, don't put the icing on the top, right? So we bake good cakes down here. So
that's a Carolina saying if I've ever heard one. I feel like I've heard them all right there, man.
Well, that's how I say it.
Always gets on me for sayings like that.
All these kids are just trying to put icing or sauce on their stuff, and I'm like, hey man, no one likes just straight sauce. Like, let's bake a thorough product and then you put sauce on it. So my thing is functional movements and applying that through performance data and just basically telling a kid like, hey, you move this well or you move this bad. Now we increase this, decrease that, however you want to say it. And now we're adding sauce to it. So
you're working obviously with track and football mainly. I mean, obviously any athlete that's interested, but kids looking to get faster, better, and you know, and now they've got that data they can use. And I guess a follow-up question would be, can they then package that data and use that as almost like a marketing tool to potential universities and or pros? And are the pros and universities looking to you guys as like a platform to come to from an acquisition standpoint for trying to get data to look at these kids?
Correct. And you asked me like who else I work with. So I have so many things. I wear so many hats. No pun intended. I'm the director of analytics and sport performance at Duke Sports Science Institute right now. So that's where I get a lot of my athletes. And this has been about a year. We did our first combine training preparation this past year. We're coming back around to our second. But to answer that question, we work with track, every sport. I got volleyball heavy right now. Just mostly your off seasons, right? Volleyball, softball. Coming back around, we have some guys that just signed to the G League teams and the NBA. So, you know, we're growing, but all this applies to all sports. I think being able to move athletically and functionally is probably the most important thing here. Be an athlete. I feel like we sometimes get too in the weeds with the sauce or the skills training, but I think the sauce and the skills training are very important. But if you're not you're not an athlete base, like you were saying earlier, DJ, about track versus football. I was an athlete. I was really fast. So it didn't really matter where. I just need to learn the skills, right? Like I was a crappy basketball player until I learned how to dribble, right? But I was really athletic, you know? So I think that applies to what, you know, kind of what we're doing down here, like building very functional athletes and helping them move better and then ramping up from there.
Do you ever, I know you got probably a couple more questions, but I'm going to ask one more real quick. So when you're over there at Duke a little bit, you got all them kids in the triangle down there. If you got a kid looking to go to Duke or Carolina, you're like, look, I'm going to help you out a little bit. But if you go to state, I'm going to give you the full package.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. Partially because I'm a little correction. So through Duke Sports Science, it's through the Duke Health System. So sure. I do and don't work with some of the football players.
Okay. All right.
And I say I do because I have had interaction with them. I have worked with them, but then I say I don't because it's not an official capacity. Now, if I really said I work with people, I'm really a Wolfpack through and through. Like I bleed red. I will go about I've spilling my business, but like a kid's coming by here right after here to come just talk shop and prepare for the game this weekend, right?
You're gonna change in all your NC State gear when he comes over?
No. I already kept it on.
Oh yeah, I know you got the shirt on.
I got my Thayer Thomas jersey. This is my dog right now. He plays for the Vikings, so I just that's my support. But no, I let kids choose their destiny and their journey, cool. Right? I just support them. I actually think that what divides us by our colors and our schools is probably a hindrance more than something positive. Like I feel like we're drinking the same water from the same area. And I think community would definitely help us, but we're so divided that we can't even like come together to have good synergy. We do it academically a lot better than we do athletically. Just our library system is one of the largest in the country, I think. And that's just because we've got 3 great universities in the Triangle area that collaborate, where if you don't have a book at State, you can go to Carolina, you have it there, you can go to Duke, someone's got it.
That's
And I
cool.
think we should do something similar like that through sport, but also it's so competitive, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, obviously, TJ, you're creative. You have certainly a heavy focus on business, even as a coach. I'm curious, how many or how often is it that you're dealing with a client and you actually, I mean, I know mentoring's a part of it, but how often is it that you're actually mentoring the kid outside of the sport?
Oh, I think that's probably more important than the on the field part of it. I think like my lady right now gets really mad at me because I tell her, hey, I'm going to go train today at 10 and it's an hour session. So she's thinking I'm going to be home at like 11. She literally probably thinks I'm going to be home at 11, right? Like I'm done at 11, but I'm home at 11. And I'm usually not home until like 1 o'clock. And she's just out there like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, one, after the session, I talk to parents, kids wait around and we talk. That's probably I don't want to say I'm a terrible coach. I'm going to call myself the greatest coach, but I think the part of the coaching that I think the kids love is just being so personable and talking through stuff, not just running them through like it's military base, but treating them like humans and treating them to having the respect for them to listen to their problems so we can get to a common goal, common destiny, right? And if kids coming out there with a lot on their mind, like, how am I going to run you, right? Like, I want to get through that first, and then we can run, right? So I'll spend the extra time to talk that over, spend the extra time to go over. Like, I'm always recording stuff with video, so it also gives a chance to review sessions, but it also gives them a chance to talk shop. Like, I had a kid I called last night at like 11:30, and I was just going over his data, and I asked him if he was up. He's like, yeah, I'm up. I was like, all right, cool, let's go over it. So we talked for about an hour last night from 11:30 to 12:30, just about the data that I was seeing, but that was just a blip of it. I just got the door open. We talked a lot more like personal. We just got into it where like I was very candid and honest with him about some things that I see that I didn't want to disrespect him. I wanted to be as honest as I can to kind of move forward. And I kind of went into a lot of other things in his life that we kind of had to unpack to even get him to receive the initial message. So I think that's more important now with coaches is having that, personable approach and having the ability to talk, parents and athletes.
Yeah, man, there's so much to unpack in that question and that answer. I mean, I was thinking about earlier on a lot of these interviews, we talk a lot about like mental health and how important that is, especially in today's game. And I feel like, anytime you talk about coaching or when you've had a coach, it's not just like what you learned on the field, but it's like those lessons you learn that have turned you into the adult you are today. So I just think that's such a big part of it.
Yeah, it's huge.
And then you mentioned earlier, talking about how, you got into trouble a little bit and then you applied that on the football field. And I think there's a lot to be said for what you're doing right now, because if you think about a lot of kids now, they're on their games and it is what it is. That's like part of nature. We're on our phones, we're on our screens, but to be able to like get out on the athletic field and to apply that like physical energy, especially for like young men, like they got to get that energy out. That we got so much testosterone going on that we need something to do.
Yeah.
The athletic field is a great place to do that in a constructive way. But also with what you're doing, you're tying in like technology into the sports arena. So it's like they're getting that little bit of like, what's my data? What are my numbers? Everybody's got the Fitbit or the Whoop or the Apple Watch or whatever. We all want to know our data. And so what you're doing is pretty cool because you're using the data and the athletics, bringing it together, which makes it more interesting, I guess, is what I'm trying to go for. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah,
you're talking to a kid at midnight about his data.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like I was a curious creature. Like I was I don't know, I was kind of teased at being a little nerdy for being a football player. I kind of wanted to be a dumb jock. I'm like, no, I mean, you could do both. Right. And nowadays you're just educating athletes. They're smarter. Like, everyone knows how to use an iPhone. No, everyone knows how to use a computer. So they're understanding that there are different forms of technology. Someone just don't have a chance to ever get around a person to explain it. So once you start explaining it, you threw the pebble in the still pond and it just ripples, right? It just keeps going. And you just being their coach, now they can always contact. I had a session yesterday at this group, there's this gym in Wendell, and I have like 30 kids, and I constantly get asked, like, young softball girls, hey, I didn't get my information from last week. I'm like, hey, check your app after this. Hey, I didn't get my, like, literally they're so intrigued by their numbers. And
Yep.
I'm not saying they're like the fastest athletes, but for them, that is really good information. They really love seeing themselves move, and then also just bringing that information to me to prescribe them a necessary movement to like get better. Like they're eating it alive. And I think it's the new wave of sport, but also too, it's just education based. You just got to educate your kids and be there for it. I have a son who's 8 right now, and I started collecting data on him. Like I have a baseline of him at 8, and this is when I first started his athletic journey. And in a year, we'll see his growth, and then 5 years to see growth, and before you know it, we'll know what an 8-year-old to I don't know, who wants to play soccer, English Premier League soccer player looks like. I don't know, so. It's good information to know, but also can get really negative quickly too, because some kids get down on themselves, right? Like comparing themselves to other people when it's really your athletic journey specifically. But it is a competitive life that we live. A lot of people just comparing themselves to everyone. But I would encourage athletes and parents to kind of just understand themselves, understand their kids. Health-wise is probably the most important piece, especially if you're moving well. You're eventually going to be 34 and you're going to be retired. And your body's going to feel like however it's going to feel. So if you want it to feel great, take care of yourself. I think data is a good way.
In your 40s or your 50s like we are. You'll get there, but
Well, that's why I said my age first. I didn't want to, out everybody, but I was basically saying like if you started at 30, you'll be good by 40 and 50.
Well, I was thinking when you were talking about being 8, I was like, dang, when I was 8, he wasn't even born, because I could have used some training on speed, because speed was not my skill set.
If you hung around in my family,
tools, it was the last tool. I'll just tell you that.
There was no way not to be fast in my family. Like, especially being a troubled kid, my parents disciplined me and I would just take off, but there was nowhere to run to. So I had to learn different ways to juke and duck.
Yeah.
It definitely applied to football. So
practice makes perfect, or perfect practice. So now what about your favorite moments, whether it's in athletics, personal, or business, favorite moments in life?
Man, that's a very open question. I'm definitely
like going on Oprah. You're on Decide to Dominate. That's a question you got to think about for a second.
No, I believe in graduating and transitioning through life in certain phases, right? I feel like if you don't understand that what you did yesterday it's over, you just have to build upon that to go forward. I think the most important thing of us as humans is our history. So I don't have a favorite. I'm very just fortunate and thankful that I've had very good moments that have helped educate me and graduate to different parts of life here. Like if I have been able to look back, I see this thing that led to this, but at the time I was just holding a bunch of lemons. That's what I tell my kids, holding a bunch of lemons. And at this age, I've just been squeezing it, adding some honey, some sugar, places making lemonade out of them, right? I'm very fortunate to be a part of the family that I was born into. I think that's a huge play into it where, for a while, I didn't really know who my parents were. Just they're my mom and dad, not them as humans. They're themselves. Once I learned who they are, I've been very fortunate. I thank them probably once a week. Like, hey, I appreciate you guys, because it's played a very huge part into just me being a parent myself, mentoring other kids, but then also just throughout my life. One, being in Raleigh and being connected NC State at a young age definitely helped, being around the key people. My dad being a professional track coach and then having access to, Olympians or world record holders at a young age, something that I don't think many people, I probably might be one-on-one there, right? But that definitely helped just kind of, learn and educate myself on, what it's like being a professional athlete at a young age. So I already implemented a lot of those things into my process, going on to actually being a part of the process. And then because I didn't have to learn the process to that depth, I was able to keep my eyes and attention elsewhere. The college was important, went through some growing pains there. NFL was important, all of it up until I think, if I want to give you an important piece, it was probably meeting Dave Anderson at AFCA, CEO of BreakAway. And I say that because it was right before COVID, so no one really knew anything was going to shut down. And transitioning out of football was definitely not easy.
Yep.
Because I put so much time and attention into it. I didn't know how to transit. I didn't know what to do yet. I didn't know. I was trying to coach. You were talking Bill Walsh earlier. Like, I don't know what to do with these lemons. And very tech savvy and ended up meeting Dave, and he kind of was like, hey, well, let's figure this out together. This is my idea. I see how you can benefit us, and let's work this out. And, he gave me a chance, and, we're here now. We're here. Even this breakaway speed product basically sat down one day and was like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, this would definitely help me, what I have going on. This is something we should build. They worked it out. I'm not saying I'm the smart genius that, coded it all, but, being a part of the group, definitely a lot of the ideas came from just me being on the ground using it and having a track or speed background. So I would say the best thing was probably meeting Dave for sure. Really, really excited about where we're going with Breakaway, but then on to like even just working at Duke Sports Science right now. Like I get to be a kid in a candy store in my own community. Like I said, Duke, Durham, Chapel Hill, UNC, Raleigh, NC State, we're so close. So just being able to live in Raleigh, but then just venture 30 minutes down the road to Duke. My lady's a UNC grad and her dad's a legend over there. So I get to go over there and enjoy that too in a different capacity. So I'm just very fortunate. I mean, it's a good Thanksgiving week to just be very thankful for a lot of opportunities to even just be where I am, to help people. I think that's the main thing here, is just helping with, a lot of the knowledge that, bumps in the road I took to help other kids not have those many bumps. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I know kind of we'll wrap up with some time here. I know we're kind of getting to be a little bit over, but I think a key thing you said is the transitions. So obviously we based this show after DJ's book, Decide to Dominate, and the awesome book that it is. By the way, click the link at the top if you want to buy the book. But I was talking to my grandma was with us this weekend visiting for the holidays. We celebrate my wife's side the weekend before, and she was like, "You ready for your show today?" And I was like, "Yeah." Telling your grandma, explaining to her like what the show's all about, and I literally said exactly what you said, because she was kind of like, "Why is it interesting?" And I said, we as athletes, we dedicated our life to this. Like, yeah, you go to school, yeah, you think about maybe getting married one day or whatever, but like baseball, football, basketball, track, volleyball, it's your life. And when it's over, and for me, it was the end of my college career. And, for you guys, obviously you went on to play professionally, but then it's like, what do I do now? Right. Yep. And so, like you said, you had to find something to do, and you did. And I think dominating in those transition times as not only athletes, but just like individuals, it just says a lot about like what happens next in life, building on the past, figuring out where you are right now in this time of change. And COVID was a big thing for everybody in that, as far as that goes. So, I mean, yeah, this has been an awesome interview. We always like to ask, so if people want to get a hold of TJ, where can they find you at? What's the best way to get a hold of you and to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm on social, right? I'm on Instagram heavy, so do it for the gram. So do it 4 the gram. That's okay. On Instagram. You can look up us at Duke Sports Science Institute for sport performance if you need some training. Like, it's a really cool thing we got going on down here. We go top to bottom, head to toe, getting you right. We do everything under the sun that you would need to excel. If you're a professional, you have everything here. If you're just an amateur, we got that for you too. But if you're ever in the Raleigh area, like I said, just use social to kind of contact me, and I'll work with you. Like I actually even love doing remote training. If you want to do it through Breakaway Speed, like just go download our app, do a speed assessment, share it with me. I'll go over it with you.
Oh my gosh, I should do that. We should go do that right now.
You should do it. You definitely should do it. And record.
You don't want to see my numbers, TJ. They're bad.
Nah, they're your numbers. There's no such thing as bad numbers. That's what I'm saying. There's no such thing as bad numbers. They are numbers for you to get faster. Period.
True.
That's it.
True that. All right, cool. You got anything else?
Well, I'm going to hit my peak as far as getting faster.
Well, you can always get better than where you are right now and get back to where you were.
Well, you're only getting slower. So it's good to know where you are and try to keep this as long as you can. I'm not expecting to go any faster, but you never know. Like, we might have to run from a tidal wave or something. You got to be booking. So we want to keep ourselves fit.
Well, I work out in the woods a lot. So as long as I can outrun a bear, so
correct.
That's pretty fast.
Correct.
Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time with us today, man. Happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays to you and your family. We'll definitely keep in touch. Obviously, we got a lot going on off camera, so thanks for being part of the show today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks, DJ. This was solid. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys too. Right. Everyone.
Cool. We'll try to step up our background for the next time you're on the show too.
Me too. I'm gonna add more. We can keep going.
All right. Good. Take it easy.
Later. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Good.
Cool, man. That was good. He's awesome.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
he's awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody we interview is freaking amazing.
I know.
Like seriously, they're just
He's
good
sharper.
good people.
He's sharper than I thought. I mean, I knew he was
Yeah,
sharp.
he's really got the tech brain. He's like really smart when it comes to like analytics. Right. That was a good balance, I feel like.